You're listening to Zen Sammich, a podcast for the independent mind and anyone who embraces life despite its absurdities. Join former attorney and professor-turned-Japanese papermaker Mark Reed each week as he talks with creative, inspiring, and influential people, or as he shares his own research to help make your world a little better today than it was yesterday.
Rabbi Yonason Goldson, well, oy vey, where do I begin? He is the ethics ninja, as well as, quote, a fundamentalist hitchhiker. Both of those monikers warrant a little more explanation, but less cryptically, he's the author of 6 or 7 books. His latest is due out this month. That one is going to be called The Spiral of Time, Discovering New Insights and Inspiration in the Jewish Calendar. He is a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker with 3,000 years of experience. Not literal, of course, but referring to the 3,000 plus years of wisdom and traditions and storytelling in Judaism. He's a world traveler. He's been a teacher. We were both recipients of the 2002 Biz Catalyst Radiance Award for Storytelling Excellence. Yay, us. And as I mentioned, he is a learned rabbi and scholar. I could have him on the show for any of that stuff. But my rationale for asking him on today stemmed from a single question, which we will get to momentarily. He joins me now from St. Louis. Welcome to the program, Rabbi Yonason Goldson.
Thank you, Mark. That was a very interesting introduction.
Well, I like to let people know I do my homework, and there's so much. There's actually a lot of more accolades I could have listed there. So that's the Cliff's Notes version.
Less is more.
Yeah. Well, okay. Before I get to my big question, explain to folks why you are the ethics ninja, and explain briefly about the hitchhiking rabbi.
Well, let me take the second one first. I graduated from the University of California with a degree in English. What does one do with a degree in English? I took mine and set off hitchhiking cross country.
There you go.
I wanted to add some street smarts to my book smarts, and wanted to put myself in a situation where I had to be challenged day by day. When I finished doing that, I crossed the Atlantic, went backpacking across Europe, and eventually ended up in Israel, and that's where through a series of unlikely events, I connected with my Jewish origins. I was raised with really no sense of my Jewishness at all, just knew I was Jewish. But I discovered this vibrant culture of deep thought and community and higher purpose. And that has directed the course of my life for the last 35 years or more. I met my wife, had our first 2 children in Israel, and then embarked on my teaching career. Wanted to teach the wisdom I had discovered to young people. So I taught for a year in Budapest, Hungary, 2 years in Atlanta, Georgia, 20 years in St. Louis, where I live now. Retired in 2016 to start my speaking and consulting business, taking the universal principles of Judaism and applying those to the professional world. And when I tried to hone in on what was really the essence of the message I wanted to communicate, I came up with ethics. Because ethics is really all about relationships, about integrity, about community, about society. It's not enough to follow the law. It's not enough to be in compliance. We really have to orient ourselves to think about what is best for the world. And I know this is something that Judaism has in common with Zen.
Yeah.
The idea that we're all interconnected. Everything is one ultimately. And
Well, I was going to ask something you said just made me think of a question. Is it important? I assume it is important that you act with intention as well. So like, you don't just follow the law because that is the law and that's what you're expected to do, but that you actually have a motivation or intention to do good. Is that fair?
Well, sure. And it's actually both.
Okay.
In other words, the reason why we do what God said is because God said it.
Right.
But that's not enough. We need to try to learn why God said it. What is the intent in the mind of God, so that we can try to orient our thinking to be aligned with that of a higher consciousness. And that not only benefits the world, but we benefit ourselves. We transform ourselves into more spiritually and morally refined beings.
Yes. Well, wow. I actually already could go on a tangent or a divergence that would take us down a whole rabbit hole that would be a whole nother episode that I want to ask about, but I do want to get to my questions because that makes me want to ask like questions about, well, how can we know the intention of God? I mean, other than words that have been written in the Torah or the Talmud, and that gets debated. Well, for those 3,000 years, it gets debated back and forth. That's a rabbit hole I'm not quite prepared to go into, but you do already bring up interesting questions. Let me go to where I want to start, and maybe if we have time, we can go back to that stuff. So you and I have been connected through Biz Catalyst, I think before our first direct interaction, which was on a Zoom meeting. We may have like corresponded through comments and replies or something, but our first verbal interaction was through a Zoom meeting on the topic of the rise of anti-Semitism. The first question, and this is not the big one I have, that'll come up a little later, but why do you suppose anti-Semitism is on the rise? And I will be honest, and I'd like to be honest and frank about things here. I was unaware of that. I don't dispute it at all, but I didn't realize it. And I'll even add that growing up, I grew up in Alabama, which has its colorful reputation. And I heard my fair share of awful racist stuff, at times. But I never heard, I really couldn't recall anyone ever saying or starting a sentence with, it's because of the Jews or something like that. I really never heard any slanderous thing about Jewish people. And maybe that's because there weren't many Jewish people in Birmingham, Alabama. I've since lived in New York City and South Florida and been around plenty, but I never heard anything other than Mel Gibson voicemail or something like that. And so, why do you suppose it is increasing rather than dissipating or vanishing?
Well, let me start with an anecdote to address your point about Alabama. I was listening to an author on NPR, and he was talking about how he had researched a book on Southern plantations. And he went around trying to find people who were advanced in age who remembered more of the plantation era.
Right.
And he came into this sort of broken down shack of a home, very old lady with appeared to be her son or her grandson, who was somewhat inarticulate. And in the course of interviewing her, right in the middle of the interview, she stops and she says, "What did you say your name was?" And he said, "Reuben." He says, "What kind of a name is that?" "It's Jewish." She leans forward and says, "You're a Jew?" And he starts to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
And the grandson seems to be getting a little agitated, and he's not quite sure what's coming. And she says, "Jews are the finest people on God's earth." And she launches into this elegy about how wonderful the Jews are.
Yeah,
he said he would have dismissed it as an isolated incident, but he said it happened a number of times.
Yeah,
and I think that there's a certain affinity that you find in communities that are more Christian-based, deeply Christian-based, as you have much of in the South.
Right.
Less sophisticated.
That's true
like
too.
The urban world that appreciate the contribution of the Jews in a way that's perhaps more visceral or emotional. But to get to your question, why is anti-Semitism on the rise? Well, there's a theological approach to this I'd rather not get into because that's a rabbit hole in itself. But I came across an article a number of years ago that really struck a chord for me in this topic. It was written by about a woman named Jody Blanco, I think, who wrote a book about bullying.
Mhm.
And her thesis on why some children get bullied and others become bullies is that the children who are bullied are often those, and this is based on her research, are often more mature empathically or empathetically.
Mhm.
They have a more highly developed sense of empathy that they project outward. And the children who become bullies are the ones who are less developed in their empathy. She actually describes it, she calls it empathy deficit disorder. And the ones who become bullies, they're intimidated. They can sense the maturity of these other children.
Mhm.
And it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them feel inadequate.
Right.
She describes these other children as the ancient child, ones they're young in years, but have a clarity of moral vision that they can't necessarily articulate because they're young,
Right.
but they do project outwards, and that creates this sort of resentment on the
Right.
part of the bullies. And I thought that this really describes, in a sociological and psychological sense, the source of anti-Semitism. Why has this been going on for over 3,000 years? Why does it keep raising its head again and again and again? And I think one feasible argument is that the Jews are the ones who brought to the world our foundational principles of morality. If you read the non-Jewish historians, Paul Johnson and Thomas Cahill, they both say the same thing. That all of the essential values that we take for granted today, love, kindness, peace, justice, harmony, charity, these are concepts that all came into the world through the Jews and Judaism. And there has always been a resistance among some. Well, we want to live in a world of moral autonomy. We want to define our own values. We don't want to have higher values imposed on us because we don't want to have to live up to that standard. And that creates the resentment against the Jewish people. Now, today, what's going on today? King Solomon says in Proverbs, right, don't move the boundaries of eternity that were set in place by your fathers. There are certain moral boundaries that have almost always been taken for granted as fundamental axioms of an ordered society. And today we're living in a world where virtually all of those boundaries are being torn down. So, in the name of justice and kindness and openness. So that creates a new tension between this view of the world that let's open things up completely, let's remove all those boundaries, and the essence of the Jewish people as the ones who were the vehicle for putting those boundaries in place in the first place.
Well, if you and I know that we want to stay away from the theological side of this, but if you believe in prophecy and that this is predetermined to happen, then I guess my question would be why. I mean, I don't want to say why fight against it. Obviously, we should be fighting against anti-Semitism or hatred or, in any form. But if it's going to happen, why, in one sense, why wouldn't you almost want the prophecy to be fulfilled so that a Messiah might come or for whatever reason, why combat it?
Well, there's another rabbit hole we can go down.
I know. I knew this would happen.
The nature of prophecy, as we understand it, is twofold. And much of prophecy is meant to be a warning. So there's a rule that has been handed down from the sages that prophecies for the good have to come true. Prophecies of bad do not have to come true.
Okay.
There are warnings saying, on the path that you are currently traveling,
I see.
this is where you're headed. Feel free to choose to take a different path.
Like, okay. All right. Well, that's
Right?
good.
And so anti-Semitism, and this does get into the theology, that it's an indication that the Jewish community is not living up to its standards. I mean,
Okay.
we just, we're recording now less than a week after the National Day of Jewish Mourning, which is a 25-hour fast on the anniversary of the destruction of 2 temples in Jerusalem, when we see that all of our suffering as a people is a natural consequence of our being separated from God with the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. And we're supposed to take a lesson from that.
So it's a form of punishment then.
Well, it's a punishment in the sense that we like to call our prisons correctional institutions, but punishment is not, God's punishment is not punitive.
Okay. Yeah, it's not punitive, right? It's not
correctional.
I see.
In other words, this, you have to. King Solomon says, "Spare the rod, spoil the child." Right. If there isn't some sort of accountability for misdeed, then you just continue with the misdeeds. If you know that you're going to be held accountable, that's part of what helps keep us in line, or at least can help keep us in line.
I see. Okay, well, let me then go to the question that I had. And I brought it up in the meeting, but we were at the end of that meeting, and we just it was too much to go into, and that might happen to us again here. And let me apologize from the outset if my question is ignorant. If it appears that way, it's because I am, but not from lack of trying. I have done a little research, but I would like for you to explain it to me and to other Gentiles. And for people who don't know, Gentile is just a non-Jewish person who might have this question. Is Judaism a religion or a race? I know it's more complex than just that simple division there, but if this is the mindset, I think, of people who aren't Jewish. If it's religion, why is conversion more difficult than just saying, okay, I believe in that now, I'm Jewish, versus someone who's just born into it? And then if it's a race, what are the distinguishing characteristics of the Jewish race? I mean, and then what do you do about Sammy Davis Jr., who became Jewish?
It's funny you mentioned him because his son was my best friend in first grade. So
really, wow, yeah. That's amazing. So you get the essence of my question.
Yeah.
So help me out.
Yeah. And so, well, first let me say that ignorance is nothing to apologize for. We're all ignorant because we all have things we don't know. Willful ignorance is the problem. We don't want to be educated. So the fact that you're asking the question is already on the right track. Let me start sort of at the end of the question, and then we'll see if we want to work our way back into a broader context. The definition of a Jew traditionally is either a human being born of a Jewish mother,
right,
or a human being who has, or let's say a previously non-Jewish person who has gone through what let's call for the moment a kosher conversion. So what makes a conversion kosher? So if you look in the book of Ruth, Naomi, who's the first heroine of the story, her 2 sons marry women from the nation of Moab who are not Jewish. And when Naomi's husband dies, they lose their fortune, the sons die, and she says, I'm going back to my people, you go back to your people. And she has 2 daughters-in-law. Orpah says, okay, and she kisses her and goes off. And Ruth says, where you go, I will go. Where you dwell, I will dwell. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. And this is the summation, really, of what it means to be a Jew. It's a commitment to national identity and to adherence to the Word of God. as handed down at Sinai from God to Moses.
Right.
And so a convert is not required to know every single commandment and how to observe it, because really very few of us do. But they are required to commit themselves. And with that commitment, we believe there's a spiritual transformation of the soul of that person. Any human being can choose to be a member of the Jewish people. But once you are a member, you are now an inheritor of the legacy of wisdom and blessing that God gave, beginning with Abraham, through the patriarchs, and through the generations. And you can no longer opt out. If you were sincere when you opted in,
you're in.
It's a one-way deal.
Yeah.
And so to the details of your question, is Judaism an ethnicity? Yes, in the sense that we are descended from common ancestors. Mm-hmm. Is it a religion? Yes, because there are requirements. But is it something different from either? Yes, because you can't opt into an ethnicity,
right? And
you can opt out of a religion,
right?
So perhaps the best model I've heard is to think of it as a family. You're born into your family. You may not like your family,
but you're
right. But they're your family,
right?
No matter where you go, no matter what you do, they are always your family. But you can also marry into a family,
right?
Even if, because sometimes there's divorce, people will leave a family, but you never are completely separate. You have children together, you have family connections.
Right.
My uncle was involved with a woman for a number of years, and she came to all the family gatherings. And after they split up, she continued to come to the family gatherings.
Yeah.
And even though my uncle has now passed away, and she's gone on, she's still
apart. Yeah.
Is in contact with the family, because that bond was created. It doesn't automatically end.
Yeah.
So this is, and so what's happening? When we mentioned Sammy Davis Jr., what's happened over time is that different groups within Judaism or within the Jewish people have attempted to redefine what it means to be a Jew. And so to convert without a commitment to uphold the totality of the law is not universally accepted.
Yes. Okay.
And of course, that creates a certain amount of tension within the Jewish community,
because
some people would like to be consider themselves Jews, and others are unable to recognize that identity because it doesn't fulfill the traditional definition.
Yeah, I have personal experience with. I mean, this was many years ago, but I had a good friend that she was Jewish, but I knew more about Judaism than she did.
Which is not uncommon.
Yeah, and I did. This was immature of me, and I wouldn't do this now. And maybe it was even disrespectful. And I shouldn't have done it. But I tried well, look, I believe in everything that Judaism upholds. So I'm Jewish. I tried to say that, and she's like, "No, you're not Jewish. You didn't." And I'm like, "Well, I'm more Jewish than you." Is the way I sort of countered her, but I get it. I do. And I appreciate your explanation. I do like the analogy of the family. I think that does clarify it a little bit in my mind.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I mean, I grew up with no knowledge, really. I hadn't heard of some of the major holidays.
Right.
My bar mitzvah was never observed. I never learned the Hebrew alphabet. And it was only when I got to Israel, I was 24 years old, and that's when my Jewish education really started.
Oh, wow.
So it didn't make me less Jewish.
Right.
It just meant that I didn't know what it meant to be a Jew or to live as one.
I get it. Well, tell us a bit about the new book, The Spiral of Time, Discovering New Insights and Inspiration in the Jewish Calendar. What's in it for all of us, whether we're Jewish or not?
Yeah, and that's the point I'm glad you asked, because while it is written with the Jewish community in mind, it is not written solely for a Jewish audience. As I said in the beginning, there is so much universal wisdom in the traditions of Judaism. And I mean, we talk about the country being built on the Judeo-Christian ethic. What I like to do in the book, it's a series of essays. So you can really pick it up anywhere. And, it demonstrates the deeper meaning of the individual holidays in the context of our movement through time. So the holidays were never intended to be seen in isolation from one another. And that's why I call it the spiral of time. Because life is not a circle, because we don't come back to the same point. It's more of a spiral. We come back to the same point on an axis, but we're in a different
place. Right. I get it.
And we're moving constantly outward and ideally upward. And so I draw on my personal experiences. Some of the essays are a little more scholarly, but most of them were actually written for a general audience to help readers who are interested in understanding themselves, understanding the world we live in, understanding what it means to live a life of purpose and higher vision, and then to find inspiration, because I think we all need that.
Absolutely.
So much negativity in the world, and so much cause for cynicism and pessimism. I hope this will be a contribution to helping us see the future in a brighter light.
Nice. Well, I'm definitely in favor of that. So, Yonason, I do a segment in most episodes, almost every episode, called 5 Minutes Zen. And when I'm talking with someone, I usually tailor the question for that person. And so here's your question for the 5 Minutes Zen. And what I'm looking for, usually, it doesn't have to have anything to do with Zen, just practical advice that the listener can think about for 5 minutes, or can apply to their day, or hopefully to their lives, and make their day or their lives a little better. Here's my question for you. What practices from Judaism, like Shabbat came to my mind when I was thinking of this question, that non-Jewish people can adopt or learn about to find moments of rest and reflection in their busy lives? Or put another way, what does Judaism have to say about mindfulness and living in the present moment?
Pretty much everything.
Well, okay.
There's a famous saying, I'm not sure exactly what the source is, but says the past is gone, the future isn't here yet, and the present will be gone in an instant. So
sounds very Zen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting that it says in Genesis that Abraham, after Sarah died, Abraham married a woman named Keturah and had sons, and he gave them gifts and sent them away to the east. So there is a suggestion there that Abraham may have actually had an influence on the development of Eastern philosophy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is a lot in common.
Yeah.
I mean, of the world's religions, in some ways, Zen, I think, is closer to Judaism than just about anything else. So mindfulness is definitely it's definitely on our minds. But in terms of practices, you mentioned the Sabbath. And that's a great place to start. There has been a bit of a trend. I don't know how popular it is, but the idea of taking a technology Sabbath.
I do.
Unplugging 24 hours.
I absolutely do. Sometimes, sometimes longer.
Yeah, I mean, in the observant Jewish community, we don't use anything. We don't turn lights on and off.
Right.
We don't drive cars. We didn't use our landlines, and still don't. It's a complete disconnect. And the idea is that when the Torah says 6 days you shall work, it means for 6 days you're masters of the world. Well, that's a tremendous opportunity. It's also a tremendous responsibility.
Right.
On the seventh day, you stop. One, it relieves you of the burden of being responsible for how things are. And two, it reminds us that we are merely custodians of the world, not real masters. So there's a tremendous benefit in that kind of disconnection, especially all the psychological issues that are involved with technology today. It can be really liberating.
Yeah, I like that.
Remove oneself.
Well, Yonason, what do you have going on right now? How can people find you? Where when the book comes out, and it may be out by the time this episode comes out. I think they're both coming out this month. So when it does come out, where can people find the book, and how can they find out more about you?
Yes, I hope it'll be out by the time this comes out. I'm actually on the brink of setting up a new website. So by the time this goes live, I certainly hope it will be live.
Will it still be under YonasonGoldson.com?
Well, that will direct it there, but it will now be ethicsninja.com.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
And then people don't have to worry about how to spell Yonason.
Yeah, I was going to say, people will probably be able to spell that a little easier. Good.
Yeah, so that's in the works. I'm in the midst of creating a one-man show.
Nice.
Which is going to debut, God willing, on September 12th. For your listeners in St. Louis, keep an eye out.
Wow, awesome!
And I hope that will then go on to other venues. And I have an audio version of my book Proverbial Beauty that I just got the final files in the mail this morning.
Oh, so you read it?
I read it. Yes.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Oh, I always like audiobooks that the author read instead of an actor or something.
It was not it was not an easy process.
When I was looking through your books too, that was the one that really, I mean, they all seem very appealing and interesting, but if I were going to pick one first to read, it was that one. What's the title? Proverbial
Beauty. It's Secrets for Success and Happiness from the Wisdom of the Ages. It takes excerpts from the book of Proverbs.
Okay.
And applies them practically in our lives.
That's why I think it appealed to me when I read that description, because I'm all about practical solutions. And
yeah, well, that one has a special place in my heart.
Oh, good.
My wife gave me the idea of it, and then I sat down and it kind of wrote itself. The first draft I finished in 2 months.
Nice.
It's something that I think anybody can easily relate to. And so the audio version will be available, and everything will be linked on my website, ethicsninja.com.
Okay.
So please go there, and of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there.
Okay.
And always grateful for the engagement.
Awesome. Well, I will link that stuff. I'll put ethicsninja.com down and link your LinkedIn profile so people can follow you. Well, that is all, folks. Go check out ethicsninja.com. Go check out the TED Talk on YouTube. And I'll link that one as well. And when it comes out, it might be out when you're hearing this. Go buy The Spiral of Time, Discovering New Insights and Inspiration in the Jewish Calendar. It's for everybody, not just the Jewish community. And after you do that, go buy the book first. But after you do that, if you have a couple of bucks left over, you can help out Zen Sammich continue its journey of finding more interesting stories and experts. Go to zensammich.com and find out how you can help this show with just a one-time donation. Just a few bucks helps pay the bills. Rabbi Yonason, thank you so much for your time and insight. I knew it would be an enlightening experience and that we wouldn't get to everything I've got. I'll have to have you back on, but I'm very grateful for your time today.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.